Never underestimate the ability of life to not only exist, but to thrive in places that are virtually devoid of modern technology. The image that you're seeing is from a very popular channel here on YouTube where these guys are out in the jungle and with only rudimentary tools create some of the most amazing structures and things you've ever seen. I'll see if I can find the link to it and drop it down in the first pinned comment. But I'm sure a lot of you are asking, what does this have to do with Antarctica? Well, a lot of people believe that it would be impossible for life to exist under the ice in Antarctica simply because it's devoid of modern technology. The continent is larger than all of Europe and is virtually unexplored. On the right, I've brought up an image that shows what is underneath the ice that they know of, the rivers and the streams and the lakes, the dozens of volcanoes creating volcanic soil. Now on the left is an image from my backyard. It's a 3-inch thick slab of concrete that is sitting on top of a bed of sand. It's used to support the filter housing and the pump for the swimming pool. And there's some very tiny cracks in the cement. It's 3 inches thick, setting on top of a bed of sand. And lo and behold, a little green plant has made its way through these cracks. Now, if this can happen in Florida, and what we saw earlier can be created in the middle of a jungle, why would it be so hard to believe that on a continent larger than all of Europe, virtually unexplored, with unending supplies of fresh water and volcanic soil, there couldn't be some unknown race, some unknown civilization existing? The Russian Navy released a report many years ago, stating that they believed UFOs loved oceans and lakes and rivers. And I'll give you a link to this article. The records dating back to Soviet times were compiled by a special Navy group collecting reports of unexplained incidents delivered by submarines and military ships. The group was headed by Deputy Navy Commander Admiral Nikolai Smirnov, and the documents reveal numerous cases of possible UFO encounters. 50% of UFO encounters are connected with oceans, 15 more with lakes, so UFOs tend to stick to the water. And that would make sense. One of the regions that they single out is Bermuda and the Caribbean. Ocean UFOs often show up wherever our or NATO's fleets concentrate. Near Bahamas, Bermudas, Puerto Rico, they are most often seen in the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, in the southern part of the Bermuda Triangle, and also in the Caribbean Sea. Now let's go back a few months when I was talking about this very strange image I uncovered from the internet. Now it is an illustration, but many things from history are illustrations. It shows a building that you wouldn't place anywhere in history, in any location in history where this would make sense. Silos in the back, giant doorways. Where could this possibly be? I made the allegation that it could be in Antarctica, and those silos could be storage for what I believe to be were fava beans. Why fava beans? Well, they grow in very harsh environments, and they've been grown since the time of Christ, really. But they do have a side effect. They provide a certain level of nourishment, but if you eat them for a long enough time, they will cause a coloration in your skin. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, there's this strange story out of Saratov, Russia, from October of 1847. And I'd like to read this to you, and it goes along with 2 other accounts of the same thing. An account that is worth including here, and this is UFOinsight.com, close encounters, occurred in Saratov region of Russia near Balashov in October 1847. We're going to go there on Google Earth here in just a minute. Local residents would notice 4 fiery columns of light, remember that, in the sky overhead. Each column sparkled between shades of blue and white and were visible for almost 2 hours. Then, as quickly as the lights had appeared, they vanished, leaving the area in complete darkness again. Not long after the incident, residents of Saratov began noticing, quote, bizarre-looking strangers walking around the area. They appeared friendly enough, although nobody could understand them, nor, it would appear, could they understand the locals. Descriptions of the strange visitors would state they looked very much like, quote-unquote, elderly men with yellow-greenish faces. Remember that, too. While many of the men in the region, particularly older men, would grow beards, the strangers were all beardless, which also made them stand out. Most of the locals, despite their strange appearance, thought they were eccentric travelers and for the most part let them come and go as they pleased. They never asked for anything nor made any trouble. They would always disappear by nightfall, however, and would rarely spend more than a day in the same region. The local police would attempt to track down these mysterious strangers who had found their way under the authorities' radar through street gossip. However, they would never manage to apprehend any of them. Now remember, yellow-greenish faces, 4 columns of light. Who remembers the story of the green children of Woolpit from the 12th century? Local farmers back in the 12th century, Suffolk, England, found a boy and a girl weeping in a field. They brought the children to the home of Sir Richard de Calne in the village of Woolpit. The children spoke no English and refused to eat food. They both wore oddly colored clothing of unknown materials. Eventually, they began to eat beans exclusively, meaning that's all they would eat, after going without food for several days, but only after they were shown how to open the stalks. Both children were soon baptized. The boy grew weak shortly after and eventually died. The girl survived, learned to speak English and eat other food. Her skin turned to a normal color. Here's the important part, guys. Pay attention. When asked about her origins, the girl described a place with no sun where all the inhabitants were of green color. She claimed that she and the boy separated from their people as they wandered in a large cavern and, upon exiting, were struck senseless by the excessive light of the sun and the unusual temperature of the air. Now, second account. Fast forward 600 years to 1887, August, Banjos, Spain. A boy and a girl of greenish color were found abandoned near a cave. They did not speak Spanish and wore unfamiliar clothing. Their eyes were described as oriental in appearance. As with the first account from England, both children refused to eat at first. The boy grew weak and died, but the girl survived, learned Spanish, and explained she and her companion came from a sunless land. The account differs from the first, as the girl was reported to have claimed they had been caught up in a whirlwind and found themselves in a cave. Now, does this make sense? That perhaps underneath the ice in Antarctica, a civilization had existed, had thrived, had developed certain traits and certain things that made them very, very different from us. They had developed textiles, perhaps, that we hadn't seen before. And more importantly, they grew up on a diet of beans, which you can't live on forever, at least as far as modern humans go, but perhaps their physiology allowed it. Explain how an image of Antarctica could appear on an island in southern Florida. I don't think anyone can. But here's the crazy part about this. I found Balashova, Russia on Google Earth. And guess what I found? I found 4 pentagons surrounding the city that for some strange reason trees only grow in this odd shape in 4 different locations, and they described 4 columns of light. What if they have the ability to use what we would describe as a stargate? And perhaps a couple of children stumbled on something they didn't know, activated some type of device, and they were transported to different places around the world. Suffolk, England, Balashova, Russia, Banjo, Spain. Why would these appear? And we've shown these all over the world. Those of you who are familiar with the Pentagon investigation know exactly what I'm talking about. Brazil. There was an issue in the Paraguay River from the 1850s. In fact, let's go there real quick. That was part of that article. This article talks about UFO sightings from the 19th century, meaning in the 1800s. Holloway in London, the Rangoon River in China, 2 locations in France. And the primary one they were talking about was the one in Brazil. Incident occurred on the Paraguay River, stretch of water that Leverger, the captain, had helped to chart and map out the year prior. The river runs between Paraguay and Brazil's Mato Grosso area. June 1846. This guy was leading 2 gunboats down the stretch of water, and they saw some phenomenon up in the sky. Luminous globe performed with instant speed, 30-degree curve in front of them, connected to a light band. These are virtually the exact same descriptions that we're seeing from modern Navy pilots 160 years later. And when you put this all together with what the Russian Navy has said, with where we've seen them, to me it's beyond evidence that they transport and use our oceans to get around. They have some type of technology that allows them to instantly move around the world through a Stargate type of network. But they live and they are based in Antarctica. Because there's absolutely no evidence anywhere on the planet that being too hot, being too cold, being too remote, absent of modern technology, precludes life from not only existing, but it thrives and it develops. I have proof in my backyard of this. If you were going to plant something to grow, would you take a seed, bury it in sand, and then pour a 3-inch slab of concrete over it? Well, of course you wouldn't. But look what actually happens. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in the world who's ever seen something grow up through the concrete from virtually zero light. Now take that same idea and apply it to Antarctica. A continent, larger than all of Europe. There's 4 times as much fresh water in Antarctica than in the rest of the world combined. Everything is here. The evidence is here. To me, it's beyond dispute that this is where it's coming from. There is a lost civilization that we are just now beginning to understand. And they have evolved in a very strange way. It's not going to be like what California, Paramount Studios, Star Trek, Captain Picard. It's not going to be like that. It's probably going to be somewhat bizarre. And perhaps in some ways a little disappointing. They're not going to have phasers or photon torpedoes or any of this other kind of crap. But they may have some things we can learn from. and they could probably fill in a lot of the blanks of history. Explanations of the Antikythera mechanism, of the Phaistos disk, of the Voynich manuscript, of all of these strange things that we have found from history that we can't explain, I'll bet could be explained. So, anyway, I will leave it there. And I'll also give you the locations of this and this. This clearing is in an area that was settled by the Calusa Indians in southern Florida. The Calusa Indians were not like other Native Americans. When the Spanish first encountered the Calusa clobbered the Spanish. And the Spanish had been used to pretty much having their way. So they were very, very different. And I found this clearing down in a region where they had settled. So once again, I'll give you the location here. It looks like 26 degrees, 2443.59 north, 81 degrees, 5220.37 west. In the January 9th, 2019 layer. And you can compare and contrast. When you look at different images from Antarctica, you see this area here where the water is, this lower area. You can see that that actually exists under the ice here as well. In fact, right here is what I'm talking about. So it's incredibly accurate. But we'll leave it there. I'll also give you the link to this RT article. So God bless. Have a great week. Happy June. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.